For this particular segment, we're going to talk about jam survival. And we have instruments here that we can grab if we need to demonstrate anything. I've got a guitar sitting here if y'all want to put me to work, do anything. But I'm just going to moderate. And what I'd like to do is have each of you speak toward, if you can remember back to when you started jamming, back to when you started playing with folks. If any of you, if you can remember, put a finger on any of the anxieties that you remembered having. And just because I think it can create a bit of relationship connection here with the folks that are struggling through some of those things right now. And then maybe speak to how you saw those fears or anxieties, how you saw them be overcome. And then I'd like to open it up to some questions as well. So I know it's kind of a ethereal question, but maybe you can think back to your journey in jamming, and then hopefully show the folks that there is another side to those challenges. What about you, Katy?
Well, that would have been, gosh, when I started playing banjo, it was in college, and I was telling some of my group this morning. So I knew like the three shapes of chords and how to vamp and everything, and I guess there was kind of anxiety there. I remember day one, Alan wrote numbers on the whiteboard, and I was like, "What is that?"
So explain how you knew Alan.
How I knew Alan Munde. Alan taught bluegrass or banjo at South Bend College from 1986? Yeah, South Bend College in Loveland, Texas. It's a junior college in West Texas, 500 miles due west of here.
Wow.
And so that's where I went after high school.
Same state, 500 miles. So I had gone out there, and then Penny and Katy followed me, and you just started playing banjo. And I just want to give a little context to how Alan's in the picture.
Well, that's kind of, and then, I mean, everybody loved to jam, and I had no idea how to do anything outside of looking at a tablature and knowing how to play it. And I could kind of execute those things pretty well. Like I could read a tab and learn it and execute that. But there was no music theory there or anything. But I think just being surrounded by that, after a semester, you quickly learn, the three primary chords in whatever key you're playing in. I guess there was anxiety there in that, like, I was the worst, and it was just kind of like this setting where I knew how to do less than everybody else, it seemed, that was there. And so there was just kind of this natural, like, golly, well, I'm not good enough to play in this situation with these people or whatever. And I think the culture of bluegrass is just so humble and friendly that didn't last really too long, because there's really not a whole lot of attitude that I encountered among other people that were playing music, and everybody is there to learn. And so I think that for me kind of helped, not that I had a huge problem with it to begin with, but that for sure eased some of that anxiety for me. It was just kind of the culture of the people that I've always been around, very encouraging. And I think just learning more, just kind of as the days went on, as the weeks and months, and just putting more tools in my toolbox and learning some of these standard songs. Alan, you won't remember this, but you asked us to pick a bluegrass song for ensemble. So every semester every student has to pick a song, and you work on it for a month, right?
Well, a length of time till we got it.
Whatever it was, till we got it, and then we perform it in front of like a live studio audience. When he asked everybody in day one, pick a song, I did not know a song, because we did not grow up really listening to bluegrass or anything. And so we picked a Judd song, my sister and I. When I say we, my twin sister was out there with me. We picked this Judd song. And Alan said, how about Roll My Sweet Baby's Arms? So I was like, sure, sounds good. But that was like total intro to bluegrass.
To kind of jump off that, there's a lot of fear and anxiety just in even going to jams, in your local jams, and wondering, like, what are these people going to think of me? And much of that is imagined, because what we find 99% of the time in the culture of these jams is to come in. J-Mo, back there, my buddy from Atlanta, he's overseeing a jam outside Atlanta, and he was telling me a story that he had to evict a guy from the jam this week. He had to call him and say, "Don't come back." And he was a banjo picker that was rude to somebody that was there just trying to learn. I hope you don't mind me telling this story, but he like scooted over and blocked the guy out of the circle and was just playing over him, and the rest of the people in the jam were like, "No, that's not how this goes." And that's what you're going to find in most of your jams. There's a few out there, we call them grass holes, that you're going to find one here and there, but for the most part, people are friendly. Casey?
Well, I still really don't like to jam. I still get nervous about it. I like controlled environments where I know what's going to come next. So it's still an anxiety for me to jam.
Y'all listen to that?
Yeah.
Isn't that unbelievable? I mean, I love your honesty, but that should make us feel better. That other people that are really successful at their craft struggle with the same things that we do.
Yeah,
So
it's
thank
just
you
you
for
can't
saying
predict a jam. You know, that's the part that drives everybody crazy, is that you can learn as many standards as you can, and you can never know what's right around the corner and what tune is going to come up, and you're bad at waltzes, and they did 4 waltzes that night, you know, so you just have to
So talk about that. Talk about like getting through that, and is it worth it?
Yeah, well, if you have a teacher, I always tell students, ask them, be sure to write down titles and songs and keys. You got to know what key it's in. For anything, you find that a lot of jams have the same material over and over, and you think you'll be able to remember it at the end of the night, but you won't. You'll say, "Oh, there was this song," and that's all you'll remember. So just keep a running list of songs that give you trouble and the key, and then you can work with those, with your teacher on those. And even if that song never comes up again, if it's 3/4 waltz, slow stuff, well, at least you will have done one of them, you know, if you work through that. So it's more about the skills than specific songs. But keep a running list, because that's a great way to generate material to learn. And then my mom had the saying, I've probably mentioned it before, but, you know, don't worry about what other people think about you, because they don't. So don't worry about what they're thinking about your solo, because all they care about is their solo. What do you care about? Do you care how anyone else sounds? All you care about is how you sound.
That's right.
So everybody in that group is caring about themselves and not you. So in a good way, in a pressure's off kind of way. So those are a few things.
Exactly.
Thank you.
For me, I've taught hundreds of people in jam classes in California, and I'll tell people, and I mean this to be encouraging, not discouraging, but it can take 2.5 to 4 years, even if you've got a teacher guiding you, just to start to feel comfortable in a real jam where they're playing up to speed. And I think that for adult learners, you know, in our wide age range that we have here, the biggest challenge is playing up to speed, right? And because if you're in an actual real jam that's not a slow jam per se, the person who is leading the tune can perform that tune in whatever tempo he or she wants to do. So it's a great idea to come up with strategies where you can play things faster, and there are things that you can do. You know, you can vamp, right? Because that's half as many times that you're hitting the string, and you can do pinch patterns. If you listen, there are some things that Flat and Scruggs played, some radio broadcasts, things like Long Journey Home, that are just screamingly fast. These live radio shows where Earl hardly plays a roll pattern. You know, he'll play a quarter note and then 5/1 or something just to fill up the space. And then another great thing to do is get comfortable playing in the key of D for fiddlers and mandolin players, because their D is our G. But there are great things that we can do. We can have a lot of fun in the key of D if we spend a little bit of time with it. But a lot of the instructional books and instructional things that are out there currently don't really cover that in detail. And I love what Kristin said, you can write down the tunes with the keys. You might think at the beginning that the number of songs you have to learn is infinite. But if you're welcome at a jam, and it's something like JMO's running that's really has a welcoming environment, you'll find that everybody has really about 4 or 5 songs that they like to call. And so that reduces it from infinity to maybe 20 or 30. And then you can start working on those. And listen to some great recordings. Sometimes, mysterious things can happen at a jam. And this is one more element. Doing a lot of listening to classic recordings is important. You could be in a jam and let's say somebody calls Blue Ridge Cabin Home. A person wants to sing it. And they'll look at you as if you're supposed to know that you kicked the tune off. Well, how do they know that? Because they've heard the Flat and Scruggs recording. And so there's a lot of that kind of goes on sometimes as people are in their minds are referencing. Not always, but sometimes when things happen and you don't know why, it might be because everybody's got a recording in their mind. I'll say one more thing about jam etiquette that can be meaningful too, is that depending upon the size of the jam, a lot of times we might sing, with a duet harmony or a trio harmony, right? And people singing is great, and it's fun to learn to do those other parts. But you have to kind of feel the energy in the room, and sometimes what a singer will want when they're looking for people to sing harmony parts is just one person to sing the part. So you might witness a jam session where, I'll say, hey, I want to do Blue Ridge Cabin Home in B flat. And then someone might say, well, I'll sing tenor. And then someone else will say, I'll sing baritone. Usually you don't start singing along, okay? Unless the person says it's okay. So the exception would be, if you're playing Wagon Wheel near the beer tent at 2 a.m. at a festival, or Will the Circle Be Unbroken, everybody sings. But that can be a rule where, we're looking kind of just for one person per part. And not that that's always a good thing, but you let the lead singer kind of determine that. So that's a few tips that you might not know otherwise.
Alan?
Okay. Some things I think you can do that if you don't think you can play, like a lot of times people say, oh, it's too fast or I don't know it. But as a banjo player, I think there are things you can do to participate in a small way that can be really helpful. And I always suggest if you don't know the tune and you don't even know what key it's in and it's too fast, is just take your hand and mute the strings. And with your right hand, you can do a vamp. And it sounds like a little drum tick. And I'm not saying be loud at it. Or you could do rolls even, practice your rolls. But anything to sort of participate in what I think of as the groove of the song. Just the general rhythm of the song. And that you can train your hands to participate in this communal rhythm. And where you can feel, just music starts and you can feel it in your hand in some fashion. And it's not disruptive to other people and you do it quietly enough that you can participate. And I do it quite often myself just because there's other banjo players or it's, there's nothing I can do to lend a hand other than rhythm. And what you're doing is you're kind of going back to what the banjo is, which is a harmonic drummer sort of an affair. But you're just dropping the harmony part and just doing the sort of rhythm part. So that's one thing you can do, I think, to participate even when you don't know the tune, it's too fast, and just all of that. And even at home, I would recommend people to play along with recordings, even if you don't know them, even if they're too fast. Just participate into the groove of these professional musicians that it feels real good and you try to get that feeling into your hand. So that as you learn more, that sort of reaction in your hand is somewhat there, I guess. And the other thing I think is, and I do this all the time, and people say, well, what do you do when there's a new song and you've never heard it before? Well, I try to make it not a new song. I try to quietly while somebody's singing it is just plunk out the melody. Find the first note of the melody and go from there, and just see by the end of the tune if you can play the melody. And I don't mean in an arrangement or anything, just pluck out the single notes of the melody. And it'll always, and I'll mention, since there were students at school, you know what would always get me? I mean, I don't think I ever said it to anybody, but it was kind of somewhat, I'll say, infuriating. Is somebody would do On and On, let's say, which starts on a D note, and then the banjo solo would come in and they'd play down low on a G or something, and I just want to go, stop, you know, can't you enter at least at that just enter at that spot. Don't enter, you know, somewhere else, because right away you're not there. You know, it's just, it ain't right. So I would always encourage them, you know, just to find the first note. You know, just find the first note. And does it go up or does it go down? And then start looking for the melody. You know, teach yourself to find the melody. I think that's real important. And then you can, you know, develop other stuff after that, or in addition to whatever else you're doing. And then I'd like to tell a quick jam story.